The reason that white supremacy was able to keep a foothold in the United States for so long is because everyone was in on it. Laws were passed about it. Teachers talked about it. Teachers were segregated. The principals made sure everything was segregated. The unions were in on it. The hospitals were in on it. Everybody was in on it. If we want to make strides as a community, if we want to help our community, then everyone has to be in on it. The reason that the Montgomery bus boycott with Ms. Rosa Parks, who sparked it, was successful was because everyone was in on it. Hey everybody, it's your boy Captain Hunter coming at you again. Thank you so much for tuning in. Really, really appreciate it. Please forgive me for being absent for a little bit. I got a lot of things going on, trying to make my way, trying to do some things. And I think that it's just imperative to let you know what's going on with everything that's going on with me. Now, I want to jump in here and make this video because of my extreme disappointment with Deion Sanders and the whole Deion Sanders situation. Now, previous to this video, I made two videos. Let's see if I can find them. Two videos singing the praises of Deion Sanders, right? One was called Why We Need More Men Like Primetime, right? That's what the name of the video was. Talking about how he was standing up for HBCUs and how they were being neglected when it comes to NFL draft, trying to bring more attention to them and things along those lines. So let me back up here for a second. Deion Sanders was a prominent figure in the NFL, probably one of the greatest players. I believe he went to Florida State, greatest players of Florida State history for college football. Then he goes to NFL, was one of the top 75 players of all times. I believe he played cornerback, one of the best of his positions at all times. Was able to read defenses, make interceptions during punt returns or kickoff returns. Just an all-around outstanding athlete. He then does a good stint doing analysis, so he shows that he has the brains and the vocabulary and the ability to break down the game and understand the game. From there, he joins the HBCU community, the historically black colleges and universities status. As a head coach for the Jackson State, I believe the Tigers, but I could be wrong about that. Jackson State, the University of Jackson State, a historically black college. And then, as I mentioned in the previous video I did, he goes on about how the black colleges are not being heavily recruited by NFL prospects, and there's plenty of talent there at HBCUs. There have been HBCU players who have made it to the NFL, Shannon Sharp, Warren Moon, I believe. Some great talent has Jerry Rice. All of these individuals and more came out of HBCU. So we know that they are talent factories. But they continually get overlooked by what we could call the PWIs, or primarily white institutions, the Notre Dames, the Alabamas, the Caltechs, the whatever, you name the big school, Georgia, Oklahoma, right? These big schools, right? Big for as far as football. So I want to talk just a little bit about why I think that this is a big deal and why I'm disappointed in him. So as I mentioned, I did two videos. The first video that you saw has a deal with what I call we need more men like Primetime, more men to stand up like Primetime and advocate for our communities, advocate for our environments, advocate for our young men, advocate. We need this. They need to see us in that role. And then I did another video, which I put out on, I believe it's on Instagram, and it's definitely on TikTok. It may be on Instagram as well, talking about his response to the whole shooting of the rapper Takedown. God, I hope I'm saying his name right. Anyway, the rapper who was killed back in October-ish or so, Takedown. Deion Sanders made a speech to his team that went viral on TikTok, talking about that he was tired of seeing our young men killed and behind rap music. And I commented on that, praising him for his comments along those lines. So I wanted to say that those two videos still stand. I still believe that we ought to do that. But I was praising Deion Sanders because of his ability to see the long game, to advocate for our young men, to show them the way, to be a prime example, to bring attention, money, and clout to the HBCUs. Because let's face it, a lot of individuals were going to Jackson State and probably going to go to other HBCUs to play for Primetime or to play against Primetime, right? If you can't get into Jackson State, then you'll go to Morehouse, or you go to another Florida A&M, etc., because you want to play against Deion Sanders, and that brings the money. So what people don't understand is that where colleges and universities, in particular, what we call major institutions or predominantly white institutions, whatever you want to call them, why they got their money. Number one, they originally got it from slavery, right? And so history, Yale University, history is demonstrating that institutions such as Yale and other major institutions were all financing or somehow involved with slavery. So that's where they were able to build up their coffers and build up their legacies and things along those lines. So from there, you get the advent and the advocation of sports. Sports is huge, particularly the two sports that are huge and fund. Some would argue, and I don't know the numbers of all this, but some would argue these two sports, basketball and football, fund all of the sports programs for all the schools. So if school has a volleyball team, men or women, or their swimming team, or their fencing team, or their rugby team, or their ice hockey team, although ice hockey probably makes some money, but I don't know the exact numbers of all these. So this may be an inaccurate statement, but I believe it to be true. That football, if you go to a major school like Oklahoma, that school, because of its dowries, because of its connections to football and Notre Dame, that's how they're able to fund not only other sports programs, but fund many of the items that are going on within the school. The research that goes on within the school, right? So the educators are benefiting from the money that the football players are bringing into the school, which is why we had all these big scandals a number of years ago talking about how come sports athletes wanting to get paid for their likeness, because they're benefiting. They, being the schools, are benefiting from their, being the student athletes, images and likenesses. So this is where colleges get their money, right? UConn at one time was not the powerhouse and beacon of academic success that it is today. And the reason that they were build up their campus, the reason that they were build up their reputation is because of the UConn basketball team, right? Because of the men and the women winning the championships throughout the 90s. So this is where a lot of this comes from. So this is why, and I was listening to other commentators advocating for Deion Sanders, saying that he should follow the money, and that when you go to, Jackson State just doesn't have the resources, the locker rooms, their practice facilities, what they were able to give to student athletes as far as compensation, as far as luxury, all that type of thing. So why not go to a bigger school that would be able to give you all these types of things? Okay. Again, keep in mind where these institutions got their money from, right? They're already powerhouse schools, and they got this way because of their history of legacy of slavery. So you take these two, and then you get these institutions that you have now. So along comes Deion Sanders, who says, I want to bring attention to the situation that's going on. I want to join the college ranks, not only become a college coach, but make sure that NFL scouts are getting access to, and these players are getting access to the scouts and to the coaches on the next level. So they can not only finish their academic careers, hopefully, but they can also move on to and really have a chance and a shot at being something and being someone. The more that recognition comes, the money follows the recognition, right? We know that from YouTube pages that blow up. Whatever people are watching, that's where the money's going to go. It's the same thing with YouTube. It's the same thing with sports. Don Lemon just said this the other day with the difference between men's basketball and women's basketball, women's tennis, men's soccer. It's just what is what it is. So when and if schools were getting, imagine if Deion Sanders would have stayed at Jackson State University for another 2-3 years, right? Continuing to build up the program, continuing to get the clout, continuing to get the Class A, the blue chip, top tier players to come to his school, to come to that school. Now they're playing Notre Dame and beating them. Now they're playing Ole Miss and beating them. Now they're playing Florida and beating them. That would bring the money, and with the money comes the ability to upgrade your facilities, upgrade and you get better educators. You'll be able to expand. All that type of thing would follow the money. Deion Sanders was the linchpin to bring HBCUs to where they need to be. HBCUs are constantly in the red. They're constantly begging for donations. In comparison to other flagship schools, they don't get the donations from former. And I wish I didn't. This is all Googleable, right? They don't get the recognition and the contributions from former flagship members. Dowries and all that. They don't get the contributions that other institutions get. So because they don't get it, they're constantly in the red. They're constantly begging for more funding from the government and all that type of thing. Many of these schools are already state-funded schools, yes, and so they should be getting their equal percentage. That's a different conversation. But I'm talking about the money following the players, the money following the coaches, the money following the prestige. And Deion Sanders was that prestige. Why is this a big deal? The Black community is constantly in this fight with ourselves. We have to make a decision as to where we want to go with ourselves. Do we want to be a Black community, or do we not want to be a Black community? The Black community has been decimated. The Black community has been decimated by individuals constantly leaving the Black community. When we grow up in the hood, whether we get out through sports or through education or through our artsy talents, music, etc., when we grow up, we leave. The doctors leave, the lawyers leave, the engineers leave, the police officers leave, the teachers leave, they go to the suburbs and they leave this stuff behind. This is where the argument comes in that integration has been the worst thing for the Black community because there has been a brain drain and all of our talent has left and all that. So we have to really consider where we want to go if we want to continue to talk about the Black community. Because if we would just want to integrate, then that's fine. Then let's integrate and let's not talk about the Black community. But if we're going to talk about Black love, we're going to talk about Black people marrying Black people, we're going to talk about low marriage rates, we're going to talk about low and the high divorce rates, right? Low marriage rates and high divorce rates. We're going to talk about school to prison pipelines with their young Black children, and many of them are reading at lower levels. Young Black boys, in particular, reading at low levels. We can't address any of this because we're one solidified community with the rest of America, and we know that that's not the case. We know it's not, but this is the problem. And so we have our people who are the best and the brightest of our individuals, and they continue to go to other places. And this leaves a brain drain for other individuals. I listened to Shannon Sharp saying, yeah, some people can step into his shoes. If Deion leaves, what does that say? If Deion leaves, what does that say? Well, it's not if he's leaving. Since Deion left, who's going to fill his shoes? What top tier quality, top NFL of all time player is going to want to come in there? And why would they not leave? Why would they stay? How many coaches get fired? How many coaches get fired from top tier universities? How many Black coaches? Yeah, I know there's a dearth of Black coaches, but how many of them get fired? People were going to that university, Jackson State, because they wanted to play for Deion, because they wanted to play with Deion, play for Deion, or play against them, and they're going to go to different schools. So this is the thing that I'm really so disappointed at. It's because he talked of HBCUs, he praised HBCUs, he talked about their financial institutions and the financial viability and getting the money to come in through TV revenue and all that. He talked about it. This is what my first video about him was about. And now he's going the other direction. I'm so disappointed. I was very proud of him for speaking up about the killing of Takeoff. So proud of him for talking about other things that he had issues with. And certainly there were issues at Jackson State University as far as him being burglarized a number of times. I think some items said that he was robbed. They weren't robbed. It's the wrong word, wrong verbiage, right? He was not robbed, but he was burglarized, right? So this is a security issue that could have been fixed when you get the money, right? You can buy better facilities, hire security guards, hire more security guards, pay your security guards better, invest in better camera technology. All that could have been done if you get the money to come in. If and when you get the money to come in. He had gone undefeated, so his prowess is calling plays and prowess is motivating individuals, the two things that are needed for a head coach, the ability to motivate your players and your other coaches, and the ability to call the plays in the right plays situation was unparalleled. He went undefeated this past season. But for him to take that talent and whisk it away to go to what he had talked about was the problem. It's problematic for me. I know that there are individuals who are going to say, good for him, he get to go, follow the money, follow your heart. But this undermines and undercuts the whole system that we're talking about. The reason that white supremacy was able to keep a foothold in the United States for so long is because everyone was in on it. Every person of a certain historical origin was in on it. Laws were passed about it. Teachers talked about it. Teachers were segregated. The principals made sure everything was segregated. The unions were in on it. The hospitals were in on it. Everybody was in on it. If we want to make strides as a community, if we want to help our community, then everyone has to be in on it. The reason that the Montgomery bus boycott with Ms. Rosa Parks, who sparked it, was successful was because everyone was in on it. And everyone is not in. Everyone is not dedicated, committed to the success and the improvement and the achievement of other minority Black individuals. We're not. As soon as we get a chance to go somewhere else, we're leaving. As soon as we get a chance to and I know it's hard to stay. I'm not saying it's easy to stay. I'm not saying that, right? Because I'm sure that Deion is not lacking for money. That's number one. Really, money should not have been an issue, right? So you want fame, notoriety, all that. And I'm not saying that it's easy to stay when you're being burglarized. And I'm talking about Deion, and I'm talking about in regular routine environments, right? If you grow up in a community and the environment around you, nobody else has your value system. People are stealing from you. You can't. Your car isn't safe. You want to send your kids to the best school so that they won't be infected by the environment. I get it. I'm not, but I'm saying that it's still a disappointment when we leave. And we have to look to our leaders. We have to look to persons, whether they want to be leaders or not. And as a coach, I would say that he is a leader. And we have to look to these types of individuals and say, what do we expect from them? And it's disappointing. It's disappointing. Somebody I was talking to a little bit earlier sent me this text message and I want to read. There's one thing that she wanted to add. We were having a conversation, and she said he was a father figure to some of those boys who didn't have a father figure in their life, and for him to leave, it was very, very disappointing. It's disappointing. I'm heartbroken. Listen, I get following the money. I get it, but it's a different thing between following the money and following what you set up as a major benefactor and pride. I've talked a lot about police interactions. I've talked a lot about men being the best version of themselves. If I go back against my word and start saying everything the police are doing is right, or everything the police do is wrong. I try to call the police out when they do the right thing. As I talk about men in leadership, I want to call them out when they do right. And you can't do these things and then go the other direction, because it sends a bad taste in everyone's mouth, and it sends a ripple effect throughout the community and throughout the environment, saying that your words mean nothing, your words ring hollow, we don't have to keep up this thing, we just follow the money, just get money, just all these different types of things. And it sends this bad thing that goes out into our ether, into the environment, into the air, into our psyche, and says we should just follow the money. Forget other people, forget about other individuals. So I'm gonna end it off right there. Let me know your thoughts, your comments. Do you think that Deion should have gone to another university? Do you think he was selling out? Do you think that any individual who starts to make some stride within themselves should just forget about the community and just join the highest bidder? Do you think that ought to be the way you ought to live? Should we follow in the capitalistic system? Should we follow in this type of thing, or should we have a standard and say, this is what I want to build up, right? Because I can't believe it was about the money. And as we can see from this article, these people are so desperate to have Deion there that they didn't even have the money to do it. Deion Sanders offered $29.5 million deal, but Colorado athletic director admits they don't have the money yet. So the University of Colorado, where he is going to, doesn't even have the money to pay him, but they're going to get the money. And you can best believe that with Deion Sanders being there and all the press and all of the the ticket sales, that's where the money's going to come from. And so if they can be anticipating the money that they're going to get from the college, from the sales, jersey sales, people wanting to go to school, network TV deals, if this is where they think they're going to get the money from, then how much more do we ought to believe that the University of Jackson would be able to follow in that same path? Disappointing to say the least. Listen, I wish him well in life. I don't want to see him fail. I hope that he's successful everywhere he goes. But I just wish that more of us would take the success within our own communities and help to fix the communities. We're at a crossroad. So let me know your thoughts, your opinions. Much love and peace. Make sure you hit that rate, subscribe, and share button.